I hadn't realized that there was going to be protests in Lincoln. I just heard the commotion outside of my apartment and grabbed my camera because I assumed. When I got to the Capitol, I was told that I'd missed the marchers and that they'd headed down O Street. When I made my way down the mall to the main drag, I saw graffiti populating all of the buildings. People were throwing them up. They were masked. I couldn't tell who they were. It was surreal to see all of it go up so quickly. I hadn't even realized that there had been the vandalism at the gas station on 27th and O the day prior until I ran into an employee that was watching over on Saturday. We got to talking, and armored personnel carrying vehicles zipped past. I only found out later that there was a large gathering over on 48th and O. I assumed that that's where they were going. When I came back to the mall, I went to the Capitol and saw that there was more graffiti. They'd covered the graffiti that was on the Capitol. People were milling around, unorganized. At this point, early on in the protests in Lincoln, there wasn't a central group of leaders. People didn't really have anywhere to put their focus. There was no main central place for people to be. They were all wandering around. After the large gatherings that had happened over on 48th, a smaller gathering at O Street came together. The traffic was agitated. Motorcyclists would go up on the sidewalk. Storekeepers were worried about their shops. Multiple shops were closed, but had their employees come in to watch the entryways. People seem to find catharsis in the ability to protest and demonstrate. But there was also a very palatable sense of confusion. Some people, I think, just wanted to stir the pot, and other people wanted to express themselves given the circumstances. And then some people were just out as observers, as I was. It was interesting to see how, what with there not being any set place for the demonstrators to go, how people would just spontaneously flock from one locale to another as a group, oftentimes with motorists interspersed amongst the crowd. From what I had heard from residents in the neighborhood by the gas station that had been looted the night prior, things seemed to have been even more disorganized then. It didn't seem as though the police were centralized necessarily, more so at the Capitol or the courthouse. They seemed, by and large, in a state of standby on Friday and Saturday. But there was a deep desire on part of the demonstrators to be heard, and they went late into the night. At a certain point, they started throwing water bottles And as the night wore on, after one of the protesters had been shot in the face with a non-lethal, the tension started to increase. People started to flock to the courthouse. Long caravans of cars were driving through and honking their horns. People were playing their stereos loudly. And when the fireworks started to go off, the large artillery shells, the vandalism, all happened en masse. The smashing of the windows and the starting of the fires. It was like a domino effect. And then the riot squad made its way down the mall and through the alleyways, pushed the protesters towards the governor's mansion. They stood off for a while. I heard tear gas and non-lethals being fired. Eventually, the bulk of the crowd dispersed. But over the next 2 nights, this scene would be repeated.